Achieving optimal health and self-realization in the modern world involves more than just diets of our food and exercise. It requires a new relationship with light, externally and internally. Welcome to the Light Diet. Hey everyone, have you heard of Darin Olien? Well, if you haven't, you should. So recently, Darin put out a show on Netflix where he co-starred alongside Zac Efron, the famous movie star celebrity, who heard Darin on a podcast and basically reached out and wanted to do something with his massive platform and all these people follow him. So they connected and took a deal that Zac Efron had with Netflix for some other show and turned it into this show where they went around the world traveling to some of the most amazing places where people are living connected, natural lifestyles, very much related to the light diet and in line with the light diet principles that we talk about here on the show. And they showcase some of the technologies, some of the ancient principles, holistic lifestyle practices, traditions that these people have been practicing either recently or for thousands of years to optimize their individual health and their relationship with the planet and their environment. So they brought this out and it became a Netflix #1 best-selling, docu-series on the platform. But this is just Darin's latest accomplishment. He's been doing things all over the world for the last couple of decades. He's been called a Superfood Hunter, meaning that he's searching the globe for sustainable sources of really high quality nutrition for people living in the modern world that can both help us support our health and also help people in these places that are impoverished oftentimes be able to really empower them and support their communities. So this is what Darin is doing in the world. There's some really amazing things. He has been a leading crusader for people to look at their health and to take care of and to optimize their health. And honestly, more than anything, he's just a really good guy. So I met Darin a couple years back at a friend of ours' pool workout. And basically, it was just all kinds of really cool lifting and all this stuff going on underwater. And we were in the sauna, we were just chatting. And very recently, I actually, a couple months ago, I saw, oh my gosh, Darin's following me on Instagram. This is so funny. And I didn't even realize, that he had been impressed upon by our conversation because we didn't swap numbers or anything. So he was, keeping in touch with the light diet and I was keeping in touch with his work. And sure enough, I wanted to do a podcast. So what happened was he actually interviewed me for his podcast, the Darin Olien Show, which I highly recommend checking out. It's been growing tremendously popular, interviewing some of the biggest guests, some of the biggest people in the health space. And it's just an awesome show. So we did that back in August. And just this last weekend, I went up to Malibu, up to Darin's place where he has this beautiful, recently constructed yurt that he's been living out of because the wildfire impacted his house very tremendously. So we sat under this oak tree where we had 3 or 4 months ago back in August, recorded this great episode that you're about to hear. So check it out. Check out Darin. And as always, please share this interview with anyone if you think it can help them. I really appreciate that. Again, there's so many podcasts out there. There's so many people sharing all this information. And my goal is to be adding something of value, not just creating more noise, but really getting deeper. And that's what I'm focusing on here with the light diet is to go deeper into these kinds of questions where instead of skimming the surface, we can actually talk with people like Darin about what is really driving him so that I, myself, and you as a listener can take away the real essence of what leads someone like him to become so successful at what he's doing and what really motivates him. What does he think about on a daily and regular basis as to his purpose in life? So definitely check it out. It's going to be a great interview. Some of the things we talk about are, what was Darin's experience in the beginning of his life that led him to getting into health and superfood hunting? That was a really big subject that we dove into. Why is Darin who he is? What drives him? And does he believe that humans are, born on this earth with a certain purpose, or is it something that we create? And how do we find that? And what does it really mean to live in line with our true essence? This is something Darin really dove into, which was so relevant to my feelings of where I'm at. So we also spoke about Darin's fascination in transpersonal research, which is basically integrating not just the mind, like the focus of psychology, not just the body, not just the spirit, but actually integrating all of them so that we can really just maximize our connection as a human being and maximize our connection between our brain and our heart and our comfort and ability to really connect with what matters most in our life, whatever that may be for different people. It definitely varies, but really being able to connect with that. And then we get into a really interesting subject that I started this intro here with, which is what was it like being with Zac Efron, traveling around the world for 3 months and going to all these different places? What are some of the highlights? What was that experience like? And what is Darin doing now that he's amassed such a huge boost in his audience from this amazing experience and opportunity to do this? And what are his intentions? What are some of the things that are coming up? So check it out to hear all these details. It's a great interview. Enjoy. Hello, hello there, my fellow lover of light. Yes, I'm talking to you. You, the listener, the one who makes this podcast worthwhile for me, and the one who basically gives me a reason for doing this. So I'd like to say thank you very much for tuning in, whether this is your first episode of the Light Diet podcast or whether you are a repeat listener. I really appreciate your support. I appreciate you coming here, and I appreciate your desire and your drive to be improving yourself. So I have one request that I'd like to ask of you, and please don't skip over this because it's very, very important in order for us to be able to continue doing this show and producing this content that you hear this message. So basically, if you like the show, if you like what we're putting out, what I'm doing, and the mission that I am on with the Light Diet to basically deepen human understanding of how the body works at the most fundamental level and really connect the gap between Eastern ancient wisdom and Western modern science, if you'd like to support this mission, here's what you can do. So this podcast is all made possible by my company, Raw Optics. So many of you will know Raw Optics, but if you don't, Raw Optics is a company I started a couple years ago to make the world's most effective blue light blocking glasses. Now, the reason I started Raw Optics and the reason why we excel so far beyond so many of the other companies in the space is because, first of all, when I first wanted to begin the business, there were no blue blocking glasses on the market that both blocked the right wavelengths of harmful, damaging blue light while putting this protection in an attractive frame style that people could actually feel good about wearing and that I could feel good about wearing in public. This didn't exist. It just simply did. There's a lot of companies out there that really would focus on clear lenses, which don't block enough of the blue light spectrum. And then there are companies that would make these safety goggle looking things that a lot of people were wearing at the time that blocked some of the right wavelengths, but were not something that anyone would want to be seen wearing in public. So I started Raw Optics, and a bunch of companies have now started since then to do something similar. Yet what we are able to do to excel and really be different is that our lenses are specifically designed with leading experts from all around the world to target the most damaging wavelengths while, here's the kicker, at the same time providing you with superior color perception through our special, uniquely formulated blends of pigments with these leading experts and overall optimized visual perception and acuity. And we put these lenses into very attractive frames made of top quality materials like Italian acetate and German engineered metal, so you know you're getting something that's going to protect your eyes, protect your circadian rhythm and your whole eye clock and your light diet, essentially, while making you look like a total baller out on the street or out at home or whatever you're doing. And it's going to last, it's going to feel good, and it's going to just basically improve your life in tremendous ways. On top of our lenses, we also put, just as an added bonus, this amazing super hydrophobic anti-reflective coating, which protects the lenses from getting dirty too easily and makes them easier to clean, but also makes it so that anyone who's looking at you doesn't see an annoying super flashy glare of any kind, and you don't see it either on your side of the lens. So we really do everything to the nines because I'm not interested in selling a product that isn't literally the best thing available on the market. And so we're always also working to advance our products over time and to offer more cooler, hip frame styles that you could really love and appreciate. So this is what we do at Raw Optics blue light blocking glasses, and this is why we're different from so many of the other companies on the market trying to claim that they're selling blue blocking glasses, most of which aren't blocking any of the damaging blue light at all. And these are the clear lenses that you may have seen on Amazon and so on. So anyhow, the way that you can best support the Light Diet podcast is by actually taking the step to invest in your health by going to rawoptics.com/Light Diet 15. And so this is an exclusive deal for listeners of the Light Diet podcast. You can get 15% off any style of Raw Optics blue blocking glasses that you want for yourself, for your kids, for your family. There's no limit on it. You can do this, and it is going to be a tremendous benefit to your health, to your family's health, and to your life. And especially, you're able to support the Light Diet podcast and support my mission in researching and traveling around the world to put together these pieces and to bring this show to you. So thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for hearing out this message and for coming to listen to this podcast today. I really appreciate you being a part of our family. Have a really great day and enjoy this episode. Hey everyone, welcome to the Light Diet podcast. Today I'm interviewing Darin Olien. Darin's a good friend of mine. We met first through the pool workout, and we were just in a sauna hanging out and started chatting. And then almost 2 years later, I was on my Instagram and I actually saw, oh, Darin follows me on Instagram still. Like, that's so funny. And I heard you were doing all these things and I was like, oh man, we should really connect. So in August, we did a podcast, same seats at the same table.
Yeah,
came up here
show, yeah.
on Darin's show. So the Darin Olien Show. I don't remember the episode I was, but it was a really good show about light.
People really loved it. Yeah.
I'm glad. So now I'm back to interview Darin for the Light Diet podcast. So
underneath the oak tree.
Underneath the same oak tree, which is still really, really beautiful and a little bit toasted still from the past happenings. So I'd love to start with you just telling the audience a bit about like who you are, what your mission is, what you feel your mission really is on Earth, and how did you sort of come to that awareness of, like, because you don't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to be hunting for superfoods. I'm going to be influencing people on a huge scale on the environment. I'm going to be doing potentially a huge TV show with someone like Zac Efron. So how did that whole situation transpire? Basically your background story.
Yeah. Well, I think who I am is literally a question I ask every day. Such a powerful question because I think that we are beyond our name, our heritage, our perceived DNA. We are light. We are energy. We are a drop of consciousness expressing itself. So at that level, starting my day every day with those questions, who am I, what am I, and where am I going? Because there are three very powerful questions that I ask myself every day that inform the deepest part that I know of myself, my essence. And to be able to define that in any moment or in every day or in what I'm doing is makes me question what my intent is, and also discovering the multiple egos that I have and we all have. Everyone talks about egos in terms of it's an ego, but in fact, it's multiple. There's put yourself in one situation over here and a certain part of you expresses itself or defends itself. You put yourself in another situation and certain parts of you, maybe, an ego defends itself in a relationship. A certain part of the ego defends itself on the football field. And so I really start to unpack and uncover who I am. And now without, spending too much time on that, I really started having this awakening. I'm just a regular kid from Minnesota, right? So small town kid, not thinking I have any special awareness at all, maybe feeling I was a little different and weird. But then really it was kind of, really cut to, I did my first cleanse at 13.
Yeah, the grapefruit cleanse.
Yeah, and so
I read about that.
yeah,
That's amazing.
so that was really the first time that I could feel the almost instantaneous effect of what I was putting in my body, as opposed to drinking, 4, 5, 6 bottles of Coke every day, kind of as my own, you know, ADD, ADHD, overstimulated kid, kind of like kind of that Ritalin approach, like somehow the stimulation like calmed me down and helped me focus. And so then the grapefruit cleanse kind of gave me this peace and calm in my body, and it felt like it gave me a bit of a joystick that I didn't think I had, because it made me feel better. It made me have a different sense of myself. And I was 13. That really only became, yes, on some level I felt that, but then upon reflection later, and then it was really at 16 realizing that this kind of informed, I had a traumatic birth, and that was, 2 months early, 1970, 3.5 pounds, 50-50 chance of surviving, thrown in an incubator, not touching my mom for 3 weeks. And then the circumcision, which is just its own gnarly process, and at least they weren't vaccinating kids as much. So just traumatic. And I've had some spontaneous recapitulations, lucid experiences of no drugs too, just literally a lucid experience of being birthed. So a lot of trauma left my body at certain times about that. And I have a lot of respect for birth trauma in many ways. And so anyway, cut to 16 years old, I picked up my first dumbbell, and, my first signaling was I was weak. This is a scary, gnarly place. I might die. That was my 3.5 pound version of my first experiences. So that was in my DNA. So when I realized that food was medicine, and resistance created strength, and pain was an ally, and that stress was an ally, I then just turned into it with an addictive personality into weight training. And then I just exploded from, 16 years old, gaining 55, 60 pounds, playing football, going into college football. And then I got hurt. I was a fullback, got hurt my sophomore year, beating out all these much bigger guys than me because I loved hitting. And then I had a career-ending, tore my sacrum, a bunch of sacral ligaments, created all this instability in my lower back, and I had to quit. And that turned me into physiology, nutrition, kinesiology, study of movement, study of nutrition. So I got exposed to a lot of stuff in undergrad. And then when I got out, I studied with this guy, Daryl Greenwald. He was an exercise therapist, and I went more into movement therapy and trying to turn on neurologically what was shut off in people. And so I then studied these methods of rehabilitation, neuromuscular rehabilitation, so a fascination with the central nervous system, and like why are certain muscles shut off, and how can we turn them back on? And so I did that for years. At the same time, I had this amazing, I think you can relate to some of this stuff, where you find this mentor, or this doctor friend of mine who's now passed away. He used to come into the gym, and he just singled me out, and he just goes, nutrition is the medicine of the future. That's it. And you'd go to the library. You could only have access if you're a doctor or a student or an undergrad or a master's program. And he'd drop off, before the internet was much of a thing, he'd drop off stacks of papers. And basically, I remember having a knee surgeon. He'd just come over for a week straight and just lecturing me on functional foods. And I was just like, oh, what the fuck? And so that started turning. Then I started kind of looking into functional foods, looking into supplements, and looking at labels, and understanding that, wow, marketing and quality are not the same. And then I was frustrated, and then the light bulb went off. Well, why don't you do something about it? Having lost a father to alcoholism, I then really took whatever money he had left me, which wasn't that much, $10,000, $15,000. That's how I started my company, and that's how I started traveling. And because for me, it was about the farmer. It was about, and then I realized, oh, it's an approach. It's a multidisciplinary approach. It's what's going on in the field, what's going in the wild, how is this processed, how do we preserve the active compounds? And so that's what turned me into really this innocence of all I really want for people is to be able to thrive so that they kick ass and not just survive, but live a life that they truly want without dragging around this body. Because for me, I realized that I grabbed keys along the way so that I wasn't just this victim of life, that I could become stronger by my actions. And then slowly we find out a little bit later, I'll talk about then our thoughts and feelings. Then I went into, got a master's in psychology. So that intersection between spirit and really transpersonal psychology is really where they haven't yet, Carl Jung and all those great guys, Carl Rogers, where they didn't divorce the mind and the body and the spirit. Psychology now has divorced the body and the spirit and tried to what's going on in the mind. And that's traditional psychiatry and traditional psychology. Whereas transpersonal is really the molding of all of it. What's going on in your body is a sensing organism that processes information 60,000 times faster and better than your mind. So how can we access that information? Well, it's literally just perceiving and receiving and asking questions of what you're feeling, what you're sensing, what's going on in the body is the key and the access to a gargantuan amount of information and intuition and knowledge and wisdom, all of this stuff, but we're running around trying to figure out our mind. And our mind is really the conductor, facilitator, not the ruler of. So it's almost like feeling through the body, coming through the heart, and now instruct the mind, okay, how should I move about this life, move about this world from this connected point of view? Or there's this one philosopher said the longest road of humanity is the road between the head and the heart, right? So if that's disconnected, that takes us further and deeper away from that which is really the human side of us, the empathetic side of us, the knowledge side of us. So that's a bit of a rabbit hole. But so I went from the curiosity, the looking at the supplement world and seeing what wasn't working and seeing what was working. And then I jumped, because I come from a dad that was an ag professor at the University of Minnesota. I come from farmers and a grandmother that came over in a covered wagon, and my grandfather selling tractors, and my cousins still wearing cowboy hats and running ranches to this day in South Dakota. That's kind of in my DNA. So that's where I jumped on a plane and showed up in the Amazon, because I needed to meet the farmer. I needed to know how they were doing what they were doing, how the quality is, the miraculousness that I was reading, and then really learn about this. Because for me, I'm more of I thrive with kinesiology stuff. When I see something and how it's operating, now it clicks into my brain. So for me, going out and seeing where things are planted, the environment they're in, how they're being forged, how they're being processed, that was the better system for me to understand. And that's where the superfood hunting side of it came from.
That's amazing. That's a really amazing story. I think for me, there's a lot of parallels, because I also started at the age of 14, not quite 13, but trying to heal my own health issues. Now, for me, that was a lot more recently than it was for you, of course, but that's something that I can totally relate to. And also sort of feeling, in a sense, like I don't belong. And I really liked how you described that every morning you're waking up asking, who am I? Because for me, I'm sort of asking this question regularly. What's my purpose here? What do I really want to do? I have this business and I have this light diet that I'm teaching about, but I'm asking myself, is that really what I'm here for? And how do you know? So I like that you said you're really still asking that question every day, because people might look at, you and what you're doing and the things you've accomplished and the things you're going to continue accomplishing and say, oh, he's got it figured out. He knows who he is. He knows why he's here. Does it feel like that? Or does it still feel like it's this constant evolution, how would you, in other words, do you think anyone really fully knows why they're here? Do you feel like you know why you're here? And if so, how did you come to that understanding in your heart? Is it more in your heart? Is it something you more reason to? And if not, do you think other people ever really reach that? Or is it just this constant evolution that is more the purpose of us being here?
Great question. I think yes, all of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I really do. I think I can say pretty clearly from what I know right now and the steps I'm taking today, I know where I'm going. But it's more of and I can look at certain things that I'm manifesting right now that are popping up in the world still. And so I'm like, okay, cool. But for me, and this might sound weird for people, it's more of the more I investigate who I am, literally going in quietly and feeling my essence and letting that be a constant sense of undefinable energy, it's really the essence of me that is what, and me is a kind of a, it's kind of a, it's the expression of whoever this person is, and getting out of the way of pain, shame, fear, and all of that stuff to allow more and more of the truth and the wisdom and the spirit to come out. The more that happens, the more crazy and zany and funny and open and curious I am. So I really look for the essence that lights that piece up. So do I know where I'm going? 100% I do know, but I do not know what it looks like. I get glimpses of it. I get feelings of it. The show happens, boom, cool. There's all this energy coming at me from this success. And for me, I just go, yes, because I have a purpose and a mission that's connected to this, that is just getting going into all of these different aspects that I've bumped up against for my entire career. All this other environmental stuff, that's the thing. We were talking a little bit about the limitations of just receiving questions all the time. And certainly the same questions, because people say, tell me about superfood hunting. Well, in fact, 90% plus of my day is dedicated to infinitely more stuff than superfood hunting. And that to me is allowing this essence to come out that's supporting animals, that's supporting all sentient beings, that's supporting the planet, that's supporting clean energy tech that no one knows about, that can liberate and create power sovereignty, looking into alternative ways of building. I'm looking into Roman concrete right now, the alchemy of how Romans created concrete that is unpenetrable by the ocean slamming on it for 2,500 years. That shit to me is like, I am spent a rabbit hole of time this morning just reading about Roman concrete.
That's fascinating.
And then you know what I do? I reach out to my guy, because I'm building literally a fancy dome of a house. So I reach out to the architect and I'm sending him going, how can we do this? And he's like, cool, I'm on it.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So it's not now all of a sudden that same essence that started the superfood hunting, same essence that I feel this butterflies, this heart connection, this passion, this drive, that is not about me building the perfect house, that is about building a house that I like and I love, that's going to be impenetrable to earthquakes and fire, because I live in a fire zone, I live in an earthquake zone. So then from that, it's connected to so much more, because I want to get this information out. Everything I do is about, yes, I'm serving myself, but it's always connected to serving the greater good. And for me, that's where all of these other aspects of who I am, getting back to your point, getting back to, I'm not driven by money. I'm not driven by someone else's, I've fallen victim to it. I've lost money. I've lost investments. I've got connected to the wrong people. I've had lawsuits. I've had to sue people. Going through all of those kinds of things is learning. And I've learned along the way going, oh, I didn't listen to myself. I know what that feels like. Eyes wide open every day, going, that doesn't feel right. And don't blow that off. And so many people blow that off for the pursuit of money, for the pursuit because someone told them this is the way to make money. This is the way to get fame. This is the way to nothing. No way am I ever going to do that. So again, your question is really about helping people, helping the planet, helping animals. Like that's the broad stroke. Anything that really isn't directly connected to that, I'm just not interested. I really don't care. Like I really want to help the world because the more I know that I'm helping myself and the health and the pursuit and the passion and the connection to something greater than myself, the more it feels and fuels and enlivens me. So I just want other people to feel that. So in the health world, when they're dragging around a body that's not working, well, then, yeah, I'll come in and there's ways that we can support that, And if, your house burned down and you're putting up sticks and trees and, from trees and you're building differently or building the same in a place that in 5 years is probably going to burn down again. Let's challenge some of these systems that are archaic. And I know I've been exposed to too much. I know too much information about alternative things, about people infinitely smarter than me that are doing things just like you have been exposed to incredible people. And it's like you see all of this stuff and then that alchemy of seeing all of these angles of things, then you form your own conclusions, or better yet, your current point of view, because conclusions are conclusions. Your current point of view is all that you have in this humble nature of life, because after this conversation, you and I are going to be different. After this conversation, we're going to proceed. I'm saying things I haven't even said before on a podcast. So our energy is creating a different alchemy. It's creating a different outcome. So it's like I might walk away and I have one goal over here, but now it's shifted just because of our conversation. You know what I mean? It's like that's the openness. But also being clear, being an entrepreneur. As you know, being an entrepreneurial person, you have to have certain things that are going to be sustainable. It has to be grounded. So I don't want to sound so out there. It's very grounded, which is why I don't wear shoes. Same. I'm on in the earth. I listen to the sun, and I want things to manifest. Because that's part of the fun too. It'd be like having a guitar and not playing music, right? So part of the fun of being an entrepreneur person or writing a book or accomplishing something is making a music. And that music then gets to live in life and express itself and contribute to other people's lives. And that's fantastic. Like the show, like the book, like whatever else that you and I are going to create.
Yeah, there's lots definitely coming. That was an amazing answer. So for someone like me, and I think there's a lot of people who would relate to this in the world who are sort of searching or asking that question that I asked, what is my purpose? Can such things even be known? Is it destined or is it something I choose? Paul Chek, who I think you should connect with for sure, and you guys speak a very similar language. He uses the analogy of the drum skin on a drum being like the soul and the spirit being the, things that you use to pound the drum. And so it's like if you didn't just have either, it wouldn't make any music. It wouldn't make a beat. So the two are interrelated in a very similar way to what you just described. But he described to me when we did a podcast recently that when we feel love, when we feel that inspiration that you're referring to, that I felt too, as soon as you're saying it, I feel it. I think a lot of people listening know what that is. It's not so much, what I'm taking away is it's not so much about trying to logically reason and understand, this is my purpose, that's my purpose, this is why I'm here, the other thing. It's almost so, intellectual, which is something I fall prey to often. I get way up in my head. It really feels that it's so much more just about getting closer and closer to that essence. And Paul was saying that when we feel the feelings of love, that's the universe's sign to us, basically, that we are on the right track. Whatever that essence is, it seems to be that it's like about staying on top of the essence, staying aligned, not on top of, but more aligned with it. Like you said, that road between the brain and the heart, just keeping that connection strong and following that. And so it's not about what am I supposed to be, this or that. It's just following that wherever it takes you and not drawing conclusions, but continuously learning. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's trying to figure out the thing is a mechanical approach. And mechanics come by way of this invocation of the spirit. And then it all makes sense. It's creation first, it's vision first, and then you create a car. You put it together. You don't try to think of the car. It's like, think of the perfect thing to create, and it's going to give me all this other stuff. It's a wrong way to approach it. Like, I had an incredible awakening at one point. I was new to LA, cruising through my cash, kind of lost. This was in 2001. I just left everything and all my friends and from Colorado. But I knew I was coming out here, and I sat and I had like a few $100 left to my name. And I literally was pissed. And it was God, universe, whatever you want to call it. I said, listen, I'm not getting something, but you better make it fucking clear. You got until noon. And this was like 5 a.m. I'm crying. I'm pissed off. I'm like, I made a demand of like, I am not hearing what you're trying to tell me. I'm running out of cash. I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm here. What do you want? And so I go, you got until noon. Slammed the door, went for a run. Like, you know how you have it out with someone and then you're like, I said what I said. That's it. I got it off my chest. I went for this run. It was up in Laurel Canyon and just banging because I had adrenaline and I was just sprinting and jumping around these hills. And then all of a sudden I stopped and I wasn't done yet. So I took off on this other trail I hadn't been down. And all of a sudden, like a train hit me in a good way. And all of a sudden this vortex opened up literally. And this was again sober. I just got downloaded with this energy. And I would say now it was like cutting out all of what I thought I was into who I am. And I sat there, and this is my point. Sitting with that energy, I then realized more of who I am. And I just sat with it, and I sat with it, and I sat with it, and I sat with it. It felt so good. And then over time, it started kind of coming out in stream of consciousness writing. It started coming out in lucid dreams. It started coming out, and like, I just sat. And then it would come out in a to-do list. Call this person. Call this person. You really want to do this? Do this documentary. Investigate this plant. It just would coming out in all these sideways. And the point to all that is getting in touch with your heart in that love. You have to start there. Because if you are going to get yanked around about what you should do in this world, you will be missing the success of life. The success of life is from your heart, is absolutely, because if you're saying yes now, you're free and successful now. And by that drive, people will be attracted to you like a serendipitous waterfall, right? You will meet this person, you will be open, you will be curious, you'll be pulled by the universe itself communicating to you. And that person, let me invest into that person. Let me collaborate with that person. That's what I look for people. Now, when I have synergy with someone, bam, it's on, you feel it, you say yes to it. So the more I've acknowledged that piece in me, the more I feel it and sense it and lean into it. So that's what inspires business choices. It inspires business collaboration. It inspires the next level of like, sometimes I have no idea where it's going to unfold. Sometimes I find out like, oh my God, like I just met this person because I said I didn't have any idea where this was going. So anyway, it sounds a little out there, but I think it's the farthest road that we have. We're trying to figure all this stuff out. We're trying to reduce everything down. We're trying from politics to fucking, the perfect supplement. We're trying to reduce everything down to this thing. And we're so disconnected with our truth, with our heart, with our love, with our true wisdom, that it's like throwing someone on a sailboat who's never sailed. They don't even know how to put up the sail. How the hell are you supposed to go anywhere? Just floating around. Most people are just floating around, then waiting for someone to tell them what to do or where to go. We wonder why we're not happy. This is not easy because you have to also face where you're an asshole, where you've disconnected from yourself, where you've had abuse done on you, where people haven't been kind. You have to own that, forgive them, and also do that work. You don't get to have the keys to the kingdom without releasing pain, shame, fear, anger, resentment. That you don't get your dreams. They don't live in the same world. You don't get it. Sorry. So if you want to hold on to all this stuff and then pretend you're going to win the lottery, good luck. So for me, if you put yourself on the deathbed, what's this really about? Like, put yourself there. The Toltec shamans, I studied with a Toltec shaman who studied with Carlos Castaneda and Don Juan Matus back in the day, and there was this thing called recapitulation. Recapitulate those points where you've given your energy away, or maybe where you've been harmed or something. Go back into that energy and take your power back. Where, and there's a lot of, that's a massive conversation, but it's owning who and what you are, where you've come from, forgiveness along the way, people that have, and keep in mind, I do not think anything is happening to us. Whether we have the skills yet or not, I believe it's all happening for us. Death of my father, happening for us. I started my company, my superfood journey. I said yes professionally a week after my father died. I'm not going to play around with it. I'm going to do it. That was a beautiful expression of his light coming into my life from the death of his human body. My house burning down, everything I owned except a car, and thank God my dog was safe. Lost everything I had accumulated 45 years. I am grateful for it all because it didn't happen to me. I'm not a victim of that. I am absolutely, with every cell in my body, grateful for it because it has given me more love, more connection, more possibility, more drive, more passion, more. Hell, it was great for the show. I mean, it ended the show in such an intensity that you can't script that stuff. So, yeah, did it hurt like fucking hell? Absolutely. Does it mean that I just cruise through it and it's all good? Fuck no. You have to go into that, sit in the swamp of pain and shame and despair and let it reveal. Put that seed in the dirty dirt and watch that grow. You don't get to skip steps. So healthy grieving, I don't think anyone does. I think they blow that off. We all want to avoid pain. So any pain, we want to cruise around instead of like, oh, wow, what is that? Or what did that person say that I'm not willing to go, hey, you know what? That wasn't very nice what you said, but you kind of take it and that's a little punch in the heart. We don't want to acknowledge. We don't want to have radically honest conversations with people. Very few people in my life that I can turn to and just go straight up, dude, have honest, open, hard, and loving conversations. Actually, I do have a fair amount of people I can do that with, and I'm grateful for that. So anyway, yeah, there's a rabbit hole.
That's amazing. That's also amazing. I think this is what people really want to hear about anyway, myself included. Like, from the light perspective, I think of pain and these challenges almost as sort of like kinks in our aura, where there's a really interesting light researcher named Dr. Jacob Lieberman. He's in his 70s. He's worked with all the leading experts for the last 100 years practically and synthesized them into a really beautiful physical, biophysical, biological, and spiritual sort of unity. And so he describes that our goal as a light being is to almost be essentially translucent so that light can just flow right through us. And so anywhere where there's pain, shame, grief, all the stuff you're talking about, density, it's holding that light from flowing, and then we can't really be who we are. And I feel that, I've spent my whole life doing what I think, what I thought I should do, or what was going to impress people, or what was going to make me look good, or, and I haven't even lived that much life, but that's what I've done. So I'm actively starting to work out of that. And I've had moments in the last couple of months and years, but even recently, where I was having sort of emotional releases with a really like great group of friends, for example, out on like a weekend trip where a lot of people were using all kinds of different plant medicines, and I actually really wasn't partaking much in that. But yet the love that they had just overwhelmed me, and I was like, "Phew."
Wow.
And one of the things that came up was this time when I was younger, I was like crying my eyes out for like an hour straight, and just they were just like giving me this hug and love, and like, it's okay, you can let go of that, like whatever that was. It started with one of these guys just literally coming up to me. He's about 40 years old, really nice guy, husband and wife, and they have some kids, and they live down in Encinitas where I live, so we made good friends. And he just said, Matt, I want you to know you're a really amazing man. And I was like shook, because he meant it so much. And then I walked up to him a minute later, and I was like, I just want you to know how much that means to me. And then I was just bawling, and he was just like holding on to me. And so this thing came up where I went and actually brought up, because I felt like it was the right thing to do. Like, there's this time when I was in a fight with my mom, and I was like 14 or 15, and I felt like abandoned and lonely, and I ran off to some park, and I was laying on like a park bench by myself, crying, like lonely. And they were like, go back there and tell yourself that that's okay. And that sounds pretty much like just what you described. And
That's the recapitulation.
that power that I felt from being able to go back to every single moment where I felt shame, like I didn't do a good enough job, like I lied to someone, like I hurt someone, like I intentionally hurt someone, and being able to go back and be like, it's okay, you're okay, that's like, I think everyone could totally benefit from that. And that was a concept I never even imagined that I could go back to those places and feel into that. So I appreciate you saying that.
Oh, dude,
that's amazing.
That's an incredible, perfect example of recapitulation. So think about time and space is just, it's all now, right? So it's this whole continuum. And as a soul, as a spirit, it all happened. It's all happening in our human existence. Think about those experiences, soul fragments that you're leaving. You're bleeding energy because it's affected you, it's affected another, and it's sitting out there. So that recapitulation is like picking up those pieces that were broken or shamed or feared or saddened, or you were PTSD event, whatever it is. Those are opportunities to go back and reclaim those energies. And we absolutely can do that. To this day, I'll have spontaneous, lucid experience of an event just popping into my awareness. And then I'll just go back and just grab that energy back. And it is, if you actually do it and allow yourself to go, I had that the one of birth, like absolutely fully saw my birth. And I had a surge, a physical surge of energy literally coming up my spine, like someone poured hot water up my ass, but it went the opposite way, right? And it shot up my spine, and I exploded in just snot and tears, literally from the pain and the danger of me being born. And this stuff always gets trapped. And the crazy thing is, people go about in life and they don't look at any of this stuff, and they try to pack it away. But literally, as a whole being, it is and always will affect us. And if we don't turn into that stuff, we literally, over time, it will biologically manifest 100%. I just talked to a really good friend of mine who does a lot of galvanic response with stage 4 cancer people, where he will tune into their bodies and ask them questions, and the bodies don't lie. Again, the body processes subconscious. The body is the supercomputer. The body can perceive and receive infinitely more, 60,000 bits per millisecond, than our brains can even comprehend. So again, you have this supercomputer that no one's accessing. But what if you could access it and ask it what's going on? Where's the shame? Where's the pain? Where's all that stuff? And it's almost the dissonance that we have in our mental pursuing mind. If I stay positive, if I intellectualize my life and do the right mantras, but the supercomputer, the thing that's been traumatized, or the thing that has the ability to heal, is not being acknowledged. So those pains, if not acknowledged, it will absolutely affect your biology. It will manifest into degeneration. It will manifest into cancer. I asked that same doctor, I said, how many of your patients, severe or otherwise, from people on the deathbed to having a cold, how much of this is an emotional, spiritual relationship with the physical body? He said 100%. Every single thing that is going on in your body, in some degree, and to varying degrees, and to high degrees, absolutely has a emotional, spiritual element. So if you are not, if you're one of those people listening, no, I'm good. There's always those people. Hey, how you doing? No, I'm good. They don't look at anything. They avoid all the pain. They avoid having those uncomfortable conversations. So they don't talk to their parents. They've been wronged. So they won't look at the pain and shame. You won't have those. I mean, luckily before my father died, we were radically honest with each other. We're open. We had that. My brother was absolutely the opposite. And I think he got stuck. It was hard for him because he had a bad relationship. They didn't have the same open communication. And so it was extremely difficult for him to live with the fact that my dad's no longer here. He can't deal with the same stuff because he wasn't unable to have those conversations. So it's like, I look at now, anytime, it's so easy to blow off uncomfortable conversations. It's a fatal convenience. It is. It's so easy to not go,
That'd be a good one for your fatal conveniences.
100%.
Avoiding uncomfortable conversations.
100%. And so, because that to me, if someone's willing to go there, and number one, you walk, if you're using kind words and you're not attacking people, going, hey, I'm feeling a little weird. I felt a little weird energy from when you responded to me in that way. What was that about? Ultimately, every time in the thousands of times I've done that, even though I've wanted to avoid every one of them, it becomes either a place where I see more of the truth of myself or the person, or it creates a deeper connection with that person. And what's this life all about? Isn't it about love and connection anyway?
That's so powerful. I actually had an experience like that a couple years ago in Malibu when I was living here for a couple months. I was 18. I was definitely less mature than I am now, even though I have plenty far to go. But I went to this store and bought like a beach chair and a umbrella, and they
Yeah,
broke.
you're in Malibu.
Yeah, so one of them broke. I think the umbrella broke or something happened with it, and the little triangle part that sticks into the stand got stuck in the sand. So I couldn't really use the umbrella because it wouldn't dig down. So that was just frustrating for me because it was like $20 overpriced at one of the little beach shops. And then there was the chair that was designed to basically have it so when you sit on it, you would be sitting your butt on the sand. So I was like, what's the point of the chair? So I basically went back to the store pissed off and gave the guy a really hard time about how bad their chairs were. And the umbrella broke, and I was like, can I have my money back? And that's the thing, he wasn't really being helpful with that. And he was like, no refund, no return policy. I was like, come on. So I was frustrated, I think somewhat reasonably, but still it wasn't good for me or for anyone, and took the frustration way further by sort of criticizing their whole operation there. It was pretty bad. And then I just stormed out and I was pissed and I felt really bad. I knew that I was just being unkind and unreasonable. I mean, there was a certain piece that I think they could have honored the broken umbrella, but besides that, I was just misdirecting my energy.
Yeah, if you would have went about it in a different energetic, instead of a defensive, putting this guy in a defensive manner position. Yeah.
So I went back to the store a couple days later because I felt so bad, and I was like, I need to go apologize. I hope that guy's still working there. So I did, and it was some Middle Eastern guy who was working at the store, and he was like, I just said, I'm so sorry, like I was being really unkind, and that wasn't cool, and it just felt like the right thing to do. I couldn't go without letting go of that. I couldn't go any further in my life, And basically the guy was like, oh my gosh, like that was so nice. He's like, that's so nice of you to come back. Like, please take any drink you want, like on me. Like he was like, anyway, so to your point, I think having those conversations, it's hard, but so important and so easy to avoid.
And so easy to get in your ego about it. So easy to do, I'm righteous and I'm right. I bought this thing, it broke. I am right. But going about it And from a kind perspective, I mean, I don't know how many times, you go into that. We good?
Yeah, we're good.
You go into that space of like, you see, it's always like the airport thing. You see these people just losing their minds in airports. And then I'm like, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm just going to be super kind. And then next thing you know, they're giving you free passes to the lounge. You like, there's an opening how many people are always getting hit with that energy as opposed it's unfortunately rare to be open and loving, even though some conversations are difficult, but it's rare. And so it creates an opportunity that you don't see often. I love when the serendipity steps in. You're just like, wow, if I would have
Yeah.
stayed angry, well, I already know I'm going to stick myself, just like you did. You were angry, you had an interaction, it stuck you. And we think that we're so superior and we're proving a point to that person. Yes, it's sticking them because they're going home to their family going, this little fucking brat came in and I'm just working here. I have no authority to give him anything, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then you're walking away going, this fucking overpriced Malibu or whatever. But then you went back and you remedied it. And then look at the healing that happens. Now, extrapolate that in everyone's life from family that no one wants. So, holidays are coming up, Thanksgiving, we're all going to get together. We've got 300 different things that are under the rug that we've never wanted to talk about. And we just push it back under the rug. We go about our life. We get a little annoyed after about 2 days of hanging out with our family. And then we go back. And you're like, no closeness, no intimacy, no radical honesty. No wonder why. I mean, it's like, yeah, you overstuff yourself because it's the only way you're trying to create any sort of semblance of emotional, trying to shove and eat your emotions and shove them down,
Totally.
But holidays. So I invite everyone who's listening, the holidays come up, let go of your shit. And if there's something that you need to have a conversation with, go about it from a kind perspective, from an open perspective, and a question perspective. Going, hey, in 94 when you said that to me, it's really bugged me since that then what did you mean when you said it? Because this is what happened to me. You know what I mean? Like there's a way to, and those skills are, it takes a bit to not attack people, but I encourage people to just be open and honest and loving and forgive people too.
Yeah, it's so interesting. There's two things you said for me that come to a similar point, which one is about how this pain and past trauma, whatever it is that we're, referring to in general here, it's not like it's somewhere, like you said, in the past or some anxiety about the future. Like it's somewhere in our energetic field right now. Memories.
It's in our body.
It's in our body, exactly. Yeah. So, there's different theories on where memories are stored, where trauma is stored, but in the body, in the energetic field, it is us. We are that, and that makes up who we are. So it just makes so much sense. How could we can't go back and change the past, but we can undo, like, where is it? It's not in the past, it's actually here, right? Yeah. So there's a way to fix that. And in the same way, to a more positive note, the discussion about like, what's the purpose? How does one go about living their best life? And that concept of saying yes to that love, that energy, that essence that you were alluding to and describing is, I felt this many times, like I could be having the worst day or having just challenges or whatever's going on that's all mostly a construct of my head anyway. I mean, technically all of it is. Even when your house burns down, there's like a reaction, you know what I mean? But there's very varying degrees of these things. But anyhow, just saying yes to what I love for me on certain days and times has completely transformed my whole experience of the world, where I'm just like, wow, I feel fully excited about my life. I could have been really feeling stuck for weeks or months or a day or for an afternoon, but just saying at the end of the day, I'm going to change and I'm going to get into this different vibration. It's like the energy, as energy teacher, Tai Chi master who I study from calls the energy is like all the good stuff, and the matrix is all the stuff where we choose to get stuck. So just choosing to do what we love, follow our heart, get into our body, clear out those things that are bogging us down and get into the energy. For me, that's like such a powerful opportunity. And it is here, like you said, many of us, myself included, in the past and working on getting out of that. And so many people today are just so far removed where like you mentioned, you'll ask someone, how are you doing? And they're, oh, I'm okay. Not even like in any semblance of touch with their heart.
Right.
And I've been there too. So it's really almost terrifying to know that that's where so much of our world is. So with all that being said, I'd really like to ask you a bit about I wanted to kind of just go into the main things you've learned from your world traveling journeys. I think anyone who wants to really get the essence of your teachings and the things you've learned should probably read Super Life, should probably check out, for example, some of the other podcasts you've done, because I know we're getting deeper into other subjects here than maybe your normal questions, which I prefer too. But there's something you brought up that really seemed like an area of passion that is sort of feels like beyond the Superfood Hunter stuff that you were describing, which is this concept of the transpersonal research and integration of the mind, body, and spirit. Is that something that, you'd want to share a little bit about and talk about?
Yeah. I mean, it's stepping back to pain. I think pain transcended me into this, bad relationship in Colorado when I was 23, was starting my first questions of like a metaphysical question. And I didn't even know the definition of metaphysical at that time, but I was just literally just like looking up in the sky and going, God, universe, whatever you are, like, how do I get through this pain? And then just allowing that space, that question to inform a different energy, to allow it to then, I start writing, just letting it out and letting it, then investigating and kind of picking up some books on metaphysics. And remember, Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East was this, with Baird T. Spalding, was this like ridiculously amazing series of books. But all of these things just started informing that aspect. And I mean, and then really, I did in 21 years ago, I did some ayahuasca, and I'd never had done a drug in my life. And so well before it is now, and a lot of people are talking about even microdosing, which I have a kind of a changing point of view on microdosing. I think it can be quite important for people, and getting in touch with feelings, especially now when everything feels so mechanical and scary and manipulative, from the big picture to all the way down to manipulative relationships, and without feeling and sensing and empathing each other, we're just falling farther and farther away. And MDMA seems to be very good in microdosing, but I don't use that. But
that's what all the people were on that night that I had that release. Everyone was on a lot of, I wasn't at that time, but So.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, ceremonially, and the people and the crowds and the intention has to be, I'm a big believer in the constructs of that as it relates to people doing anything like that, in any way, in any drug, from over the counter to under the counter. I think there's opportunity for a lot of unwanted energies to get wrapped up in a lot of that stuff. I've been through story I've never told on air, but I there was some very scary ayahuasca experiences that I went through, that I saw certain parts of this reality that I have never seen before. But that being said, ayahuasca definitely cracked me open. And it, for me, it was surprisingly, because as I was starting to discover myself, my true self, ayahuasca, the first time, and the intention was clear, it basically was me smiling, because the molecule, the DMT, the ayahuasca, was certainly just validating my knowing for about 7 hours, recapitulating my entire life, saying every bit of subtle and powerful intuition that you've ever had was always correct. And I'm going, holy shit. So could you imagine those whispers, those hints of go here, follow this, learn this, follow this, all of that stuff? Always listen to that. Don't blow it off. It's always correct. And I'm like going, and it literally took me through 1 million, because you can in that space. There's no time. There's really the time to be able to process stuff. 1 million episodes of that. And so I'm walking away going, ayahuasca basically said, it's right here. It's right here. And you can access it not through me, can through me. You don't have to use me anymore. It's right here through the breath. It's right here. It's right here. You don't have to use this. So for me, one experience of ayahuasca delivered exactly what I needed. And I knew that it validated this essence of me. And I continued and I did a couple of other ones, and it didn't go well, right? It wasn't a clear intention. It messed my world up, and it took a lot of work, a lot of Native American ceremonies, a lot of on the ground crying and falling apart and being almost in a straitjacket. But that's a whole nother, like, intense, the hardest experience of my life, bar none. It's too big of a thing to get into, but that also is an intention thing. So what's your intention with everything? Because it's felt throughout time and space. You know, if your intention is money, then you're going to attract a different energy. Your intention is to live the greatest life ever without the divorcing of money and abundance and beauty and connection and love. All of it. I have a clear intention. I want to live life in the greatest possible way, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, right? So it's not divorcing any of it. So if I wanted a plane, my own plane with recycled fuel that I'm putting in from recycled plastic bottles and transforming that energy and having my own plane, cool. That's cool. It's no big deal if I get it, but it'd be kind of cool if I did. The point is that just being open to any transformation of, I mean, that's kind of a weird example, but the point is that all of it, it's like saying if you're spiritual, you can't have money. There's always that weird shit. It's always weird energy when people money and all of that stuff because it's people are off in their clear intention. I've never done anything. Well, you know, I have, and I did a couple investments and I lost the freaking money. But all of my success came by way of clear, heart-driven passion. All of the successes that people see in the world was my clarity moving forward. So you even asked, like, how the hell did Down to Earth come? I was just being myself on a podcast. Like the second time I was on Rich Roll's podcast, Zac listened to that podcast. I didn't know him. He heard something in what I was saying. He connected to a passion. He reached out through a mutual friend. He called me months later. Boom. We're sitting having a vegan dinner at Mean Cafe in Westwood or Westlake near Santa Monica. And we sat there for 2 or 3 hours. And then he said at the very end, he said, what else are you doing? Well, I have this idea for the show. I wasn't pitching him on the show. I was just telling him what I was doing. And he was like, holy shit, that sounds amazing. 2 hours later, he calls me back. I just talked to my team. I have an existing deal, and I think we can turn it into your show.
Which awesome.
Yeah.
That's so
your
cool.
idea. But then obviously with that production, they made it even, it was hard for me to water it down, but actually surrendering to the greatness that was beyond my idea of how it was supposed to go made a better, more receptive show to more millions of people than if I would have had this hard agenda of hammering in environmental, food, pollution, energy systems that were just slamming with incredible science, incredible people. Not that it wouldn't have been good, but it wouldn't have been that show, and it wouldn't have grabbed people that it would have been kind of talking to our same group.
Yeah.
Instead of reaching to the people that actually need this, the bigger population that I was like, holy shit, my mind's blown. And I'm going, really? You like it? Like your mind's blown? You learned something? That's incredible. And so realizing that, when we sit in our spaces and we committed to our spaces, then obviously I lose track of where I used to be because now I'm in a different place. And so the beauty of the team who wasn't in my space was able to tell a story that would arc over and inspire a whole bunch of people, but it wouldn't have happened if I wasn't gonna let go. I almost quit when we were in our first week of shooting. I was like, this isn't what I wanted to do. But in truth, I did believe it. I stayed with it. And next thing you know, millions of people saw the show and are
Yeah.
inspired, and we get to hopefully do it again.
And you got to do, well, first of all, yes, I hope you guys have a season 2 already. And I'm only a couple episodes in, and I really, really want to see it continue because there's so many more places. There's just a short list almost that you guys covered. And if I can, with the last couple of minutes here, I really want to ask you, like, what was that experience like? That must have been really cool. You know, were you and Zac, before you went out, did you guys become closer friends, or was it kind of just like, we're diving off the deep end? Because as the show happened, I sort of saw this theme, and Rich Roll, in your recent podcast with him, put it nicely, where it was almost like you were more of like the comedy and the person like really engaging, and Zac was like, interesting. Like it seemed like he didn't know a lot of the things you were sharing.
Right.
And I just want to also thank you, because there was one moment in the beginning of the Paris when you had just crossed the channel and you were in the grass field, and you said the word circadian rhythm, and then they proceeded into a little clip about circadian rhythms, and I was like, yes, this is awesome.
Slid it in
Probably
there.
more people heard about what a circadian rhythm is from that one mention in one show than all of the rest of all of the publicity on circadian rhythms combined for the last 10 to 20 years. I mean, I would imagine so.
Amazing.
So thank you for doing that, because that's great for, what I'm trying to teach. But anyway,
Sure.
What was it like, like being over there? How did it feel? And 3 months on the road, you said?
Yeah, 3.5 months. So yeah, we got to know each other really well. I mean, pre-production was a long time, and just getting all the deals done took a long time. And so we became friends and got to hang out a lot. And it was important to me because I cared about this stuff. And the cool thing is Zac said one thing that really sealed the deal. And that was like, he goes, listen, you don't see me hawking products on my 40 million, subscribed Instagram followers or whatever. Like, and he goes, but I want to use my platform to help the environment and help
Awesome.
and I was like, this is a sweet kid that's been thrust into the public eye, and he wasn't ready. Like, he did a little high school musical that was a low budget. He was living in an apartment, barely paying rent, when all of a sudden every paparazzi on the planet was following it everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's a hard transition, especially a teenage person. So for him to go, listen, he's an avid outdoors person, and he cares deeply about his health. And so that, to me, feeling that, because we were in person together, and like, okay, then if you want to do that, then we can rip, because I know it's going to get out there, so we can go.
It's so awesome.
Yeah. So, but yeah, being on the road, it was, he wasn't comfortable being himself, never been himself, essentially. It's like being on camera, it's a different thing. Whereas I'm going to be very uncomfortable acting. Maybe impromptu acting, I'm totally comfortable, but learning lines, being another person, I'm not going to be, that's something I'm going to be sweating bullets. But to me, to be myself, living the kind of life I want, in my passion, I'm ripping, I'm having fun. That's who I am on the road. I mean, unfortunately, it's kind of a little bit of an ego thing, because some of the cool things that I did say were cut out by the zany shit that I was saying, which created a fun, that is me. And the great thing, I've had, so many people obviously reach out from my past, and they're like, what the coolest thing, some of the people that have known me all my life, they're like, the coolest thing is that was absolutely you. There was no you trying to be something else. And that, to me, was the best, because I knew that for me doing it, but then to have people that know me forever say that as well. And that authenticity had to be there and has to be there. And, from what's happened from the show and the connections and the things I've learned and companies that are doing some incredible things for the world, for the planet, for the animals, for new tech, for new single-use plastic alternatives, all these things that I've learned, I've come away learning maybe what the public doesn't know, and hopefully the public will know a lot more, but I'm more inspired by our trajectory, knowing now what I've gotten exposed to off of the show from people reaching out because they see the realness that I care about, and therefore, they're kind of realizing that's not just this dude doing a show, it's this dude who cares, and so that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that it was so cool just seeing, again, like you cross the channel and you're like, I need to get out and stretch. I'm going to go barefoot on the grass and seeing, it almost seemed like it was scripted because it was just so funny. Like Zach's seeming reluctant to take his shoes off in
Right.
Paris or France on the grass. And he finally did. And you guys talked and just even, I thought was funny was as soon as he took his shoes off, he actually also took his sunglasses off. And I think his body was almost like intuiting, you're becoming an antenna for the sunlight. And I was like, that is cool because
100%.
it was two things at once. But that must have been so cool to just be, I can't imagine what it was like to have this production team where you weren't exactly necessarily able to do all the things you wanted, but yet were you able to still just say the things you wanted to say and then they would choose what they would keep and not keep?
Yeah, you realize that the show is what it is. It was never out of authenticity for me. It just wasn't as deep as I originally thought or wanted. So I walked away going, I'm still authentic. This pursuit is still authentic. It's just had to let go of the ego side that wanted it to go deeper, to maybe impress a little bit of the percentage of people in my colleagues. But when I let that go, it's like the fun, the joy, the Gen Zs, your age and beyond, those kids in the hundreds of thousands have
Probably
reached out.
millions.
Yeah.
And watched it at least, reached out hundreds of thousands. I know, like it's almost like a 50-50 game. When I ask someone, have you seen the show? Like, yes. And that's really high numbers, for my whole generation. I mean, that's kudos. I mean, seriously, you guys did something amazing. It's just so cool. And like you said, now you have, this is leading to my last question. You did the thing that was sort of necessary, still following your heart, still out of authentic alignment, yet sort of pleasing or going with what Zach and his team was willing/able to do. And they also obviously brought this knowing that people would
tell a story and
people would get to a certain level. And I think it was great. Like even the comment about negative ions in Iceland, it's like most people never heard of that in their life. No. And probably more people on the planet have heard of that again from that one mention than all of the other people trying to push negative ions.
It's starting to scratch at the surface of miraculousness of water. That the science is ridiculous.
Yeah. I think going to Lourdes was very daring too, because like that's some almost. There's definitely, with Gerald Pollack and the work of water and energy, there's definitely science behind that. But to go, I was very, you guys went from something like Paris, which is very understandable and, okay, the water's clean, to like Lourdes, which most people are saying, oh, that's woo-woo. But even Zach was like a cool bridge. He didn't write it off as, oh, this is crazy. He was saying, whether you pray or don't pray, there's something powerful about putting your intention out and asking. And so with that, my question for you is like, you've gotten a great increase, at least in your Instagram following and your audience. And so having the show have been such a huge success, like what is your intention now to, you kind of already answered it throughout the whole show of where you want to go with this, but is there anything really particular that comes to mind where with this new or elevated level of exposure, of connections, all these companies reaching out to you, like what's exciting you the most? Is it a season 2 of Down to Earth? Is it that and a bunch of other stuff? Like, where's your heart going now? Where is it calling you?
Yeah, 100%. Season 2 would be great. They're in negotiations and things are looking good. So we'll find that out. And there's a lot to get into. I'll
watch it.
So we're already sketching ideas. And so if it goes, then we're rolling. So yeah. And the other blaring obvious was because of all the Gen Zs reaching out, that to me was the most obvious. And then I felt responsible, not in a heavy way, responsible in an excited way, that over and over and over again, if they're saying, which they were, I'm inspired, I'm excited. I want to do something. Where do I go? What do I do? All of them in many different ways. Those are the basic questions because I don't trust these systems that I'm seeing. How do I trust? So how do I help? How do I get involved? What do I do? Where do I go to create my future? So the beautiful thing is my goddaughter, Raven Sky Devaney, who I saw born, she just graduated Emerson in this 2020. She was the head of her environmental awareness, president of her environmental awareness group. I hired her, put her in front, or help her organize. And what I am creating right now is I'm gathering, and anyone, not just Gen Zs, I'm gathering, but specifically internships right now. We're gathering a bunch of researchers that want to research on a variety of different topics from health, environment, actionable things that they can do, and potentially entrepreneurial things that they can actually create for themselves and proliferate in the future. And so we're creating a program where they're creating content and communication ability for themselves to their own peers. And we're just guiding them a bit into that. So we're creating an ecosystem where they're trusting themselves, giving themselves information. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So really creating a platform for that generation to uncover, discover, and invent ways into the future out of not using judgment, right, as a key and not being political, essentially. So not being a duality thing, like look into it, educate yourself. And now in your education of our little pods, now communicate that to your peers. And so we're creating that right now. And I'm joining with this company, GoPro guys, and head of marketing guys. It's called Kind Humans. So there's this organization where we're vetting companies, we're creating products that you can trust and ways of supporting people being kind and being rewarded in a variety of different ways of being kick-ass kind humans. Looking at different monetizations, looking at different ways that people get involved, looking at different ways that we can curate the information. And also with the several companies, incredible company Footprint, who is supplying the largest non-plastic single-use creation biochemical company. So they're using polymers, plant-based polymers to create alternatives of single-use plastic. Already dealing with Cargill, Pepsi, Walmart, McDonald's, big boys, and they are moving in a big way. And these companies, everyone should hear this, these companies are moving in this space. They are absolutely doing it. So you have to understand that there are big companies doing stuff. I've been in touch with some of the biggest growing initiatives in the United States who are moving it to regen ag as well. There is some badass movement that's happening. There's a compound I've just got in touch with called osmotin. I'll just lightly touch on it.
Yeah, please.
It's an anti-aging and regenerative molecule that's in every plant.
How do you spell that? Osmotin?
Osmotin. So OSMOTIN. Okay. It's in a small degree in plants, but this geneticist figured out a way to stress the plant enough to create huge amounts of it. And it's reversing Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, and kicking on anti-aging molecules. So what it does is it mimics this hormone in our body, same receptors called adiponectin, right? So when we have a huge amount of it, then it turns on all these anti-degeneration markers, these healing mechanisms. And the chief science officer reached out to me. He had full stage Parkinson's, shaking uncontrollably. He's got a resume that goes as big as this, long as this mountain over here. And he became their chief science officer because he started taking this ground up leaf that was through genetics, not GMO, but through plant stress, he was able to take this leaf, and in a month, his Parkinson's was gone. Right? So this is reversing dementia. And so the first few years, it's our target to raise the rest of the capital and to get this out in a controlled way. So, these kind of things, I'm just ridiculously excited about. And there's green tech. We're working with some green technologies, some air motors, pulling the nitrogen out of the air, liquefying it, expanding it again, and creating horsepower.
You spoke about that with one of the guys on your podcast a while back, I believe.
Yeah, Chris Patton.
Yeah, you told me to listen to that one. That was awesome.
Yeah,
that really good.
And he's right now working on some serious, he's trying to break it right now. And that's what they do. They put it together, they push the envelope. And so that we're working on this incredible project in Australia with the 70,000 Aborigine people and a bunch of villagers that are living in horrible conditions with unsustainable power. And this would be an application where they would have infinite power, water production, cooling system, all in one. So the green tech thing is really exciting, and I'll be able to talk more about that when it manifests. But yeah, there's a lot.
That's so cool. I just want to say I really appreciate the intention to not be political, because obviously that can really scare a lot of people away and make it hard to make progress, even if there's sound evidence, overwhelmingly sound evidence behind the principle. But I think of the movie WALL-E. It's like, even if certain, I don't want to even say this, but let's just say that someone who's arguing against climate change and this kind of thing has some basis to their theories. We're still polluting the planet grossly. You know what I mean? So it's like, it isn't really so much.
Still
that's where
inefficient patterns. There's inefficient systems. There's other ways to be sovereign. And I think everyone on the planet, even a red-blooded American, can get behind. If I could show you a way to have food sovereignty, full control of your own food system, if I could show you a way to have water sovereignty, create clean water for yourself and your family, if I could show you how to create free energy infinitely for you and your family so that you wouldn't rely on a big system that could go down at any second with a high wind, a hurricane, or any sort of natural disaster. If I could show you those things and help you build your home in a way that's better protected than all of these things, couldn't you then get behind those sovereignties of power? Of course. That has nothing to do. Now, could I make a climate change argument that all of those things are great for the climate? 100%. Could I make it red-blooded American, it's just great for your own power?
And your economy.
And your economy? Yeah. It all exists. That's the thing. Why would you allow a system that's polluting you and your family? Why not we change that? And what if these are absolutely economical in a lot of different ways, creating a massive amount of jobs that are infinitely more sustainable than all of these big systems that are breaking down, that have conflicts of interest that are, largely failing in front of our face. The argument is that, Edison's derelict power started Woolsey fire. So was it a natural disaster? Yeah, there were some natural things that allowed for this fire to explode because of the land use or lack of understanding of land that the natives used to use. But at the same time, a derelict power line broke down and started a fire. So there's a lot of convergence here of a lot of different things. And I'm with you. Every time I've done a climate change talk, I said, I'm going to use the term human change. Climate is changing in whatever degree it is, and you can make the argument it does it in 1,000-year cycles and whatever else. Well, we need to change because we're polluting the shit out of ourselves.
Yeah, that's such a strong point. Yeah. I think in the show, Albert Albertson, the guy who was showing you the resource park, he put it so well. He was just saying, this is just common sense. We're using what we already have. It's just so obvious. And so I really appreciate what you're doing already, and now with the show and how much expansion's coming. And I really appreciate you sharing with me, because this has been so valuable for me personally, hearing about your path and listening to your heart and listening to that feeling of the essence and saying yes. Because when you were saying that, I was just sitting here like, oh my gosh, there are so many times when I've been ignoring that feeling. And I'm in that place right now where I'm sort of setting the stage for my life, running my business, looking at all these opportunities and trying to both leave my opportunities open, but also like focus on what matters the most. And my heart's been calling me in a certain direction. And I've been kind of like, I don't have to really listen to that. There's all this other stuff that I'm considering. But no, that's the thing. So thank you for that. Are there any other thoughts or things you want to share about, anything that you want the audience to know? Or could you please share like where people can find you, websites, and also where people could find, for example, products like your Baruka nuts?
Yeah. Well, barukas.com, for sure. We are, this the greatest nut ever. More nutrients than any nut. They're so good.
I was crunching on them like popcorn when Darin was first talking. I was so stoked the whole drive up. I was like, I hope he has some Barukas.
Of course, yeah. Well, the problem is I go through them so fast myself.
I'm going to buy a bunch.
But yeah, barukas.com, darinolien.com. darinolien.com, you can sign up for my newsletter. I'm getting into stuff that I'm not sending out on Instagram and stuff. And then fatalconveniences.com, where I'm doing a lot of that kind of pulling back the veil on our modern day inconveniences that are hurting us and harming us. As you're very aware of, our 92% of our lives are living indoors and we're not supposed to. So yeah, those are places, and ready to hook in and hold on. I'm just getting going. There's a lot of stuff coming down the pipe. Awesome.
And check out, everyone, Down to Earth, the Netflix series with Darin and Zac Efron, and your Instagram as well.
Yeah,
Darin Olien.
Superlife the book, still around and ready to be read.
Awesome. Great. Thanks a million. I appreciate it. Yeah.